next to me, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So, first thing we need to do is center the clay. I know a lot of you guys have already been on the wheel, but I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of like go over this for those of you who haven't been on the wheel ever. I think there might be one or two of you. And so, this class is, all skill levels are welcome from beginning to advanced. So, what I like to do is just get this slightly damp. Okay, I'm not soaking it down. I'm just getting the wheel head slightly damp. I'm right-handed, so when I sit down at the wheel, I want the wheel spinning counterclockwise. So when I put my right hand down, the wheel should be dragging away from my hand, okay? If I'm left-handed and I sit down on the wheel and it's going this direction, I want to switch it back. And there's actually a direction switch on the right side of these. So you want to have the wheel stopped, and I'm going to flip that switch. They're different. We have a few different models, but I can show you guys if you sit down at the wheel and it's going the wrong direction. But if you're left-handed, you want to go in clockwise, like that. Okay, so that's just a heads up. There we go. So when I go in that way, and I'm going to take my clay, and I'm going to look at these rings. I'm going to try to get this as close to the middle as possible, and I give it a nice smash onto the wheel, just like that. I've got a couple of these. I need to update them. They're starting to get a little trashed. My little diagrams for centering the clay and wheel throwing. First thing we want to do actually is center. And to do that, I just get the clay a little bit wet, right? And I'm going to push down with both hands over top of it like this. Okay? I'm really just pushing down and away from my body. And also notice like where I am in relationship to the wheel. I'm not like sitting all the way back here with my hands out like this, okay? I'm sitting kind of close, okay? I've got my stool back a little bit. I'm kind of sitting on the front of the stool. I've got my elbows down here on my thighs, right? It's good to have an anchor. I think it's really important to have like your elbows like locked in. Oops, sorry. Don't drop my phone. No. It's the most valuable thing I own. So, I make sure that it's like on the wheel. You're just pressing it down, right? My elbows are down. It's real important to really pay attention to those elbows at first. Eventually, you're gonna just kind of like get used to it, okay? I have those elbows in. And now from here, I want this clay to rise up. I want to cone it up, okay? So to cone it up, I'm gonna press in here from the front, and that clay will have nowhere to go but really up, right? Because it's rotating like this. Okay, so I'm gonna push in, and I'm using my left hand for this, okay? And it's the meaty part of my hand. I'm gonna take like the base here, I'm gonna press in here at the very bottom. I'm gonna push in, and when I do that, I'm gonna hold nice in front. I have my elbow just like locked in here in my thigh. I'm just push in there. See, I don't even need my other hand. See that? If I just push in right there, it's already starting to kind of get centered. Right? Which is really what we want. So if I push in, it comes this cone, right? And your right hand can be on the side of it. Now, if you're a lefty, how many of you guys are left-handed? Okay, a couple of you. Awesome. All right. So your lefty, it's going to be the opposite. Your right hand's going to be right here, and the clay's going to be going the other direction. Okay. I'm sorry, lefties. You get this like your whole life. Everyone's always giving you like directions for things. And it's always opposite. Yeah. So you're going to be like this. Okay, pushing in. All right. So my left hand's pushing in for righties. And then from here, I'm going to cone it back down. So I just put my right hand over top, my left thumb's over top too. I press down, and I kind of squeeze with my hand. So it's all kind of like one motion, okay? So you just do that. Now I've done this, I don't know, tens of thousands of times probably. So I'm really well practiced. It takes a lot of practice to get to this. It might take you like 20 times of coning up and coning back down before it looks like this, okay? But we want it to rotate like this and not wobble. That's what centering is, right? Is that the clay is not really moving or wobbling while it's like while it's rotating. So I'll show you that again. So press in with your left hand, nice and firm, and down nice and low. Okay. Now normally I'm using my right hand. Your right hand can assist. I'm just showing you guys with the left hand so you can see. And I go right back over top of it. That. I kind of squeeze, I'm squeezing it. And the clay is going to take whatever shape your hand makes. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have clay all over my mask flip. If your hand is, you know, shaped differently, it's going to look different. Everyone's like hand shape's different, right? So what I like to do is get it about like this, okay, and then I squeeze in the backside. I'm going to squeeze towards my body. Now I like to level it off before I move on. So that's the center, okay? All right, the next thing you want to do is the well. So Sophia's leaning up against that little diagram I drew. It's what I call quaffata. You guys say that with me? Quaffata. Awesome, good job, guys. It stands for center, well, open, pull, form, and trim. That's really all throwing is. I'll make more of these so you guys can have it seared into your mind. Talk about it, tell your family. So center, next thing I want to do is create the well. The well, I use both my hands together like this. Okay, I have the butt of my hands together. I put my thumbs together and I put my fingers just kind of resting on the outside. And again, I'm nice and cozy up against the clay. And I press down with my thumbs like this. I don't dive into it. If you dive into it like this, it's real easy to get off center, okay? And once you've already centered the clay, I don't want to have to recenter it again. So I like to have my thumbs gently like this, okay? You're going in like this, not like this. That's for when you're doing bigger clay, but we're not there yet. So for right now, you're going like this. You want to leave, I like about a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8. We're going to be slicing this off, so you don't want to leave too little clay down there. You don't want to leave too much. If it's really thick on the floor, you could create what's called a kiln bomb. It could explode, right? But I like to, at the beginning, until you get a little bit more accustomed to it, I want you guys to check the thickness of your floor, okay, as you're working. So I should have probably about a 1/2 inch there. So the wheel stopped. I press my needle tool into the floor, and I put my finger down, and it can tell me, yeah, that's a little less. That's about 3/8 of an inch. I don't want to go any thinner than that. Okay, I don't want to go down any further than that. In other words, because if it gets too thin, you know, I won't have a floor anymore. It'll just kind of like crack open. So use your needle tool for that. Okay, so don't worry about those holes. You'll apply pressure, and it'll like close that up. All right, so from here, I've done the C and a W. I've centered it. I've created the well. The next thing I want to do is open it up. This is the one step a lot of people like skip over. I think it's really important that you don't forget this. And this is how, like, if you forget this step, you'll have a really thick base, okay, and your piece will not get very tall. Okay, you'll leave a ton of clay down here. So make sure you open it up. So you open up. Everyone, take your right hand. Lefties, it's the opposite. So your left hand. So take my right hand like this. Put my middle 2 fingers over top, right between my thumb and my index finger. So my index fingers are both laying over top of one another, okay? So right hand, left hand, over top. You guys see that? Cool. All right, that's good. So from there, my middle 2 fingers now, again, make sure you always keep this wet. My middle 2 fingers, I'm gonna pull straight across and pull right, actually, not straight across. I'm moving right towards my right knuckles. So straight across, my hand is all the way down the wheel. You're gonna feel that grip from the Orion Stout. It's got some grog in it, okay? It's not gonna hurt you. Just don't press down too hard. You don't wanna, hurt yourself. If you find that you're getting like sores here, it means you're pushing down too hard. Okay. All right, so straight across, nice and slow. I'm gonna open that up. Okay. We got a little mound there, so I'll just take my sponge. I can just press down just slightly there, just move back and forth. Kind of compress that floor a little bit. Nice and flat floor. Okay, so now it's open. So that's the CWO quaff. The next thing you want to do is the P. So this is where it gets a little trickier. Now I was like this, right, for the opening. So for pulling it up, it's going to be kind of similar. It's really small. This is a small piece of clay, so it'll feel a little awkward at first, but when we use bigger amounts of clay, it'll be a little easier. I like to hold my sponge in my outside hand. So if you're righty, you're hold it about like this, okay? I'm gonna press in ever so slightly down here at the base, and I'm doing this over around 4 o'clock, okay? So if I think about this as a clock, like 12 o'clock, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So at around 4 o'clock, I apply a little bit of pressure here on the outside. Now notice again, my elbow is always down. On the inside, I'm gonna push out, and then I'm gonna start to rise up. Okay, so this is called pulling up, pulling the wall. And just do a little bit at a time. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinning out the clay wall, and I'm also pulling the clay up from the base. Alright, so now we got like this little cup. But you're like, Adam, my piece looks like this. That's okay. If your piece is a little off, just get your hands together like so. Give it a little hug. Slow your wheel down a little bit. And use really, what I call soft hands. So soft on, soft off. Okay? So just give it a little hug and pull your hands off and be back to center. So again, just like that. Okay? Now I usually like to pull the clay so to where I have about a 1/4 inch of a thickness for my clay wall. Notice I slow the wheel down and I'm pulling. The wheel should be going pretty fast when you're centering. Adding the well and opening the clay. But once you get to the pull part, that's when you slow the wheel down to about a medium speed. So it's got this nice little center right now. Now this is kind of like a nice little cup, but I really just want some cylinders for our test glazes, right? So your first time is just to make 5 or 6 cylinders, okay? So I'm actually going to collar it in a little bit. It's a little wide, so what I like to do is just kind of squeeze here, my thumb and my middle finger. I start at the base, and I go all the way up. And if the rim here, the lip, is a little off, you can always just kind of like compress it a little bit. Okay. And that's the basic cylinder, okay? It's really all we're looking for. The big thing is that you guys are really working on your centering. And once you just really establish like your technique and get more comfortable centering, you'll get much faster at it. And the rest of like the whole process will be much easier for you. Centering is the most difficult thing. Once you like become more comfortable, it's all good, okay? So I'm almost done. What you guys will want to do is, not leave any water in there. You know what happens if you leave water in there? You get cracks. Why do you get cracks? Well, so if you leave water in there, the floor will stay wet for a lot longer, right? And the top here will dry out. The walls will dry out much faster, right? What happens to clay when it dries out?
Shrinks.
It shrinks. So if this top shrinks, it's actually going to like kind of contract and shrink this outer part down here too. But when it's like softer and wet, when that goes to shrink, this is already hard out here, right? It will shrink out to it. And so that's why you get cracks in the middle, okay, on the floor. All right, so what you want to do then is, I'll usually just get this a little wet, okay? And I'll take my wire tool, and I pull towards myself, right? And it should come free, and I can slide this right up into the, pull that water in. See, there we go, that's what we want. You really gotta pull it, like use the wire to pull the water into the bottom, and it'll slide right off. My mask is gonna be trash. Okay. So you want it to slide around on here. I like to pop these down, like so, and get a little bit of water here on my back. Okay? And we'll slide this right off onto my back. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to store these. Once you've got this on your bat, what I like to do is then number them. Let's see if I can find. There it is. Something like this. The thickness of this, once I write my initials and a number on it, I'll still be able to see it post firing. If you just use your needle tool, it might disappear during the firing. It's just like too thin, right? So I want you guys to all put your initials and a number at the bottom of these. So this is my first one. So I'm going to Label this AS, because my name's Adam Schirricker, AS1. Okay, nice and big. Because again, these are going to be like our test tiles for glazes. So you need to have these numbered so we know what they are when they come out of the kiln. Okay, so the next one will be AS2, AS3, etc. And you'll use your initials and numbers after that. Okay, so that's really the first assignment. Once you have all 5 or 6 of these cylinders, you're free to start to work on something else. I'll tell you what, on Monday, those of you who start to like work a little faster and kind of plow through this first part, I'm going to actually demo cups on Monday for those who are ready to start to move towards the next thing. Okay. So that's all I have for you, other than cleanup, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Maybe like well, let's see, it's 1:40. Class is over at 3:20. We'll probably I'll go over cleanup a little before 3. Okay.
I was gonna say one thing, before you start on the wheel, today I think all the wheels are clear, but what they're gonna start doing, some people are gonna use bats. So what you gotta use is a pin on there, and that's gonna go through these little holes, and this head's gonna be sticking up. So if you're gonna throw without a bat on the wheel head, make sure these aren't in there, because it'll rip your hand up. This comes around and does a lot of damage. So look at the wheel head, make sure it's flat, go for it. If these pins are on there, all there's a little wing nut on the bottom, come out.
All right, guys, give it to it. All right, stop the video.